mean, a little bit of the background here today is, we get pitched from a number of founders, and I'd say about 70% of the pitches we get are, we're going to use AI to 100x humans in X industry, and we're going to grow and be massively successful, and 30% are, we're going to use AI to completely disrupt said industry. And so part of what we wanted to do was, one, kind of pull out that tension of human in the loop versus kind of fully AI enabled, and then two, talk about what that means in a lot of these traditional industries. And so we have some amazing founders in our portfolio, some amazing partners to really look at AI as that, or we'll look at wealth management as that case study. That's what we're going to do today. So I would love each of you to introduce yourselves, kind of say what you do really quickly, and then we can dig into things. But Aiden, kick it off.
Awesome. Hi guys, my name is Eden. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of a company called FINNY. We've been around for a little under 2 years, and as Ryan said before, our goal is to help financial advisors better find and serve their clients. So really any activities that helps them grow their assets, net of market, which we can't control just yet. We serve everywhere from SMB RAs, so your one-man shop, all the way up to large banks and broker-dealers. And so it's been super interesting to see rapid adoption of AI technology in a pretty legacy industry. And so I'll be arguing for the incumbents or the 4 legacy businesses powered by AI.
Hi there, I'm Ethan. I'm one of the founders of Hiro. Hiro is building an AI wealth manager that's D2C and DIY largely. Previously, I was the founder of Digit, as Ryan shared, which helped a few million consumers in America save around $9 billion with the product. We ended up scaling that to about 50 million in revenue and then selling that business in 2021 for about $250 million. I didn't think I would go back into fintech, but LLMs came out, and something I've been dreaming for a very long time around a financial AI, I think is now possible. And so that's why I still go to work each day.
Hey everybody, Marco. I'd say, Ryan, thank you for the overstated intro, but yeah, I spent some time in building and payments around various different corners of the ecosystem, starting with Uber in the early days, so marketplace payments and embedded fintech there. Then went to the issuing side of all that with Brex, and then spent some time on the founding team at stablecoin payments company called Bridge, and now working on agentic payments at OpenAI.
And Marco's going to be our zoom out person. So he obviously is not building a wealth management company. but a lot of these trends we're seeing across fintech, whether it's insurance or accounting or others. And so Marco's going to play that zoom out role for us. So just to start, I'm going to throw up on the screen. We have a kind of scale, and I want to sense how far apart or close we are. But basically, 0, it's what we're calling an autonomy scale, right? 0 is humans use no AI in wealth management. There's probably a few that are still in that camp. And 100 is fully autonomous, no humans are needed, and we're running away. So maybe just where do each of you fall on this scale? Let's see how far apart we are.
Right now we're at 25 to 30. So AI is used for all low complexity tasks that humans can't really bring any alpha to, so portfolio management, rebalancing, tax loss harvesting, and then everything more on the soft skills behavioral component. That my take is that'll never be automated away.
And where are we in 10 years?
50.
What about you?
And we should be evaluating like the US, the sort of developed world, the total world.
Let's focus on US to focus our conversation.
Yeah, I think, the vast majority of people in the US, most people aren't rich. Most people actually don't need a very high touch bespoke wealth manager, but they don't have a great wealth manager today. And they can, right? People are using ChatGPT every day for that. So it'll be 100, rounding error, but very close to 100 in 10 years for most people.
Cool. And where do you fall, Mark?
I love it. I was going to hedge with 75, but...
What the difference?
10 years is a long time.
That's a conservative view. Yeah, 10 years. I think if we framed it up as like 5 years, maybe 75 feels a little aggressive, but within 10 years, I'm in the 100 camp.
There will still be humans paying humans to hold their hand and call them when they're freaking out. It probably is much more like a high touch, high pay part of the market, which is still going to be there, I think, in 10 years. But most people won't be paying for that.
Yeah. And what are they not taking into account with this ranking?
So when you say most people, I think it's interesting that studies have shown, you look at Betterment, you look at Robinhood, when you cross like $100,000, maybe $250,000 in assets, like most people, 40 million households in America have, north of $250,000, $500,000 in assets and require a human in the loop and like a human to hold their hand. And so it's not a negligible amount of people that will require, I think, when we talk about wealth management services, that will require a hand-holding, someone who actually they can call on a rainy day when the market is down to not make silly mistakes. So I think we're in alignment that most of the work can be done with an AI, but the question really is like, should it be done, and will humans, from a behavior perspective, still want a human to call on a rainy day? Not can it, but should it or will it?
Yeah, I think that's valid. I think realistically, if you have under $20 million today, you should not be paying a human to do anything for you financially. Now, people do that because the services are complicated, your data is in different places, it's hard to synthesize it, but the number of people already doing things with ChatGPT, and not to keep, you could pick different models here, they're putting in their 401k and they're getting their advice. They're putting in their investments and they're getting advice, and that's only gonna get better. And so I think the ability to self-serve is gonna be even easier. It's gonna be a no-brainer that when you're wondering if your portfolio is properly allocated, you're just gonna ask whatever AI you use every day.
So maybe let's break this apart. I mean, we've been hitting on a couple of different things. You've talked about segmentation, you've talked about trust. Like, just fundamentally, why do people go to wealth managers? Just to set the stage for kind of everyone in this room, and then we can break it apart a little bit more. But what do you think some of those reasons are?
So Vanguard made a study, they call it the Vanguard Alpha, but it's the idea that if you have a financial advisor versus if you don't, your assets are going to go alpha of 3% every year, not because advisors are better at picking stocks or rebalancing, because I think that's been disproven time and time again. The role of the advisor is to stop humans from making deeply emotional decisions with their assets, and so not to pull out when the market drops and to stay level-headed. Humans are innately really emotional beings, especially when it comes to finances, and so your financial advisor almost acts as your chief of staff to manage your finances when you can't apply a level-headed, clear, logic-driven approach. And so when you want to delegate a lot of those decision-making, around your finances, that's when you would have a financial advisor.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think when we talk to our clients and do market research sort of more qualitatively, there's really 3 reasons people will hire a human to do this. One is when you reach a certain level of wealth, getting access to private investments is pretty difficult. And so the really only way to do that is today through a human wealth manager. So that's 1. 2, exactly what Eden said, like therapy. So freaking out, they're therapists. And then 3, we see this is higher net worth, helping be the bad guy in interpersonal family conflict related to money. Hey, Tom said, this is how we're gonna allocate the trust, or let's have Tom sit down and mediate. Sorry, if your name's Tom, I apologize. Pick another name, it just seems good for an advisor. But sort of that family mediation, which also could be a form of therapy, but that's what we see why someone will hire a human.
Yeah. Marco, maybe for you, I mean, does trust, we've talked a lot about trust, kind of emotional regulation, like does that require a human?
There have been a lot of conversations around this at OpenAI from like thinking about the customer support perspective that maybe kind of parlays into this use case to a degree. You could want to have a human when you call in with a problem. And you might be on hold for a bit to get through like the customer support center. They're probably not gonna have all the context, so you gotta like catch them up on the state of your account. And then you'll go through various levels of support to try to get something to get done. And so then the question is, you may just be biased to want to talk to a person to resolve a problem in the heat of the moment when it gets emotional. But if you had an experience where you had no hold time, you got on the phone and you had like instant context of your account with whoever you're interacting with, and you can immediately resolve your problem, would that be better or not? And in that world, people may prefer not to have a human in the loop. And so to a degree, I guess it probably depends on what the issue is. I think if I think about where is the human in the loop required in this interaction, I do fall in that camp of the 100 likelihood that I could get financial advice that probably solves 85% of what I need via a self-serve platform. But then when I have issues, I'm going to want to talk to a human to break the rules. Like the rule breaking is where it gets interesting, and you have to have somebody come in and have judgment about what's okay to do versus not. You can, of course, have an AI model that has a certain set of guardrails to operate within, but I think that that's interesting, and that sort of brings me back to the customer support end of where the human is in the loop for trust. But to answer the question on trust, I think as long as you're getting consistency and insights and solving the needs that you have from a platform that may be AI enabled, that could be a better experience than working with a human.
Cool. And do you think trust requires a human? Where do you fall on this?
I think it's a psychological thing. So I think robo-advisors have been better at balancing and managing your finances for 15 years. So this is not a new technology, and Betterment and Wealthfront basically bet that financial advisors were not going to be a career in the next 10 years when they were founded, because they said that robo-advisors will replace the need for financial advisors, and I think Wealthfront, which proving that point out. You have Betterment that spun up Betterment for Advisors, and Wealthfront, which didn't go out to prove that wealth managers can be replaced. And so I don't think that AI, because you now have like a chat interface, or you can have someone actually make the trades for you, that I don't think that's a fundamental difference in trust. I think humans have like a chat interface, or you can have someone a complexity requirement where you don't have a set of rules and it's not so clear as to like what you should do, like there's no decision tree really, then you do want that human that you trust and you have a relationship with. That's the number one reason that someone would pick a financial advisor, for the trust in human and like affinity with that person, more so than beating the market. I think one interesting fact to think about is that the average advisor to client relationship in America is 25 to 30 years. That's like 4 times longer than the average marriage, which is around 9 years. So think of like how deeply you have to trust that person, how long you work with them when you're picking a financial advisor.
Ethan, how do you solve, some of those out-of-box, out-of-norm situations, and how do you do that without having a human involved?
When you really think about it, we as humans, we trust lots of non-human things every day. Like I had my Model X drive me here, and I trusted it. There was no other human involved with my life. And so I think this idea of needing another human for trust is, yes, in certain circumstances, like when I hire someone to watch my kids, I probably would pay for a human for a very long time, maybe always. So it's really, it's by circumstance. In finance, the thing that people sort of just gloss over is there's always one human involved, yourself. And if you have this tool that allows you to see further, faster, more clearly, more people can just make better financial decisions, period. And they're not trusting someone else. They're trusting themselves, and they're trusting themselves to discern that what the tool is doing for them is valid and accurate, and that comes with brand and comes with other things. But I don't see trust as a impediment to having, an AI manage most people's money. In fact, it will be better in most cases. And if you can call it on your way in and have a great conversation, I'm freaking out, the market's terrible, and it talks to you in a very real way, that's going to be great and enough for most people.
So the flip side of the coin that we haven't touched on is what happens when things go wrong, right? Who wants to take that? Marco, you want to take it first? Liability, you mess up a trade.
Insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was hoping not to get that question.
We can punt. Well, why don't we start with Aiden? I bet you'll take on that.
Well, right now, SEC's stance and regulatory stance is that if you are an investment firm that deploys AI in decision making, and all of a sudden you make a mistake, like the client is not going to sue the AI; they're suing you. And so regulatory barriers right now means that if you're deploying AI at your firm, like you need to be the one to, the buck stops at you. And so if there is an AI that is out there that is deterministic, that a firm would 100% feel okay standing behind and saying like, you can manage the portfolio, that is great. But at the end of the day, the client is not calling the AI to yell at them, because that will not get any gratification. It's an AI, it's not fun to yell at. I've tried it. But it's a lot more fun to have someone they can call at the end of the day and someone to blame. And that's a big part of why there's professional services out there right now. It's like having a human at the end of the day to call when something went wrong. And I don't know if that's going to be replaced anytime soon.
I think the error rate in financial services and financial advice and in planning is going to go way down. Like we all have the story of the friend or the family member, or maybe not. Maybe we heard it, where that tax person, that attorney, the financial advisor did something that was really terrible. Now, it wasn't malicious, but it was due to incompetence. That's going to go way down. And so, yeah, there will be issues, but I think the mistakes in financial advice go way down. And then the incentives are very different. I'm not trying to, sell you this. Even though I'm a fiduciary, I still have a certain number of products I sell because I understand those products and I like those products, and they may or may not be the best product for you. That also is gone. And so that ability to hyper-personalize exactly what you're getting and have the error rate go way down, I think is, we're not maybe paying enough attention to.
But that can be true if you give the advisors those tools, right?
Yeah, and I don't think, I know we're set up to debate one another. I think the bigger thing is, everyone is going to have fantastic financial advice and support because of AI and AI, because of the application of it. Whether you're an advisor serving wealthy people, you're going to be able to go deeper, more genuinely, pay more attention, be more up to date, find clients that match your profile. But again, if you don't use an advisor, you're also going to get way better service. And so people from going underserved largely in financial advice and wealth management are going to go overserved, is what I think at least.
Your spice take just extended an olive branch. So maybe kind of one last question, and you touched on this. I mean, you mentioned regulation, kind of SEC rules. Does regulation hurt or help AI adoption?
Such a good question. We sell to large firms all the time, and so I work with compliance teams. And right now, most of the conversations we're having is make sure there's a human in the loop, right? And so they have gotten to the point that they're okay with AI being used as long as they're not using the word agentic. That's a scary word right now. Can we make sure that there's a human that's able to almost read every message, review every decision before it's implemented, before it's exposed to the client? That's where I think the industry is right now. Is that changing really quickly? For sure. I think you're going to start seeing more and more of AI taking the low complexity work from advisors and actually answering maybe easier questions directly to the end client, allowing the advisor to spend their time on more higher leverage tasks, deepening their relationship with their existing clients, serving more clients, democratizing access to wealth in a more exciting way. So I think that's where we'll see it go. But for now, regulatory-wise, I think it's very much they've taken a more cautious approach. It can do everything, but human stamp of approval before anything is actually done.
Yeah. Marco, you have a take on this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's crystal clear. Without regulation, there's never enterprise adoption, and this was true in blockchain and payments on the blockchain, and I think it's going to be true with AI as well. So always a big advocate for regulation, and then the secondary problem that happens is if you get some sort of adverse or kind of misinformed or overly conservative regulation, then you have to work through that. But it's better to do that than to exist in an undefined state where there is not really broad ecosystem adoption. So.
Do we see the wealth management kind of incumbents using that as a moat to prevent erosion? I mean, do you see any of that happening, or is it more of an enabler?
When you say incumbents, are you talking about wealth management firms or
the LPLs of the world? Yeah.
They, I think, are now seeing, very relevant as to the recent market crash in wealth management stocks after, for those of you that maybe weren't
following. We'll go there next,
okay.
Yeah.
So I'll pause my answer.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, why don't you tee up what's going on in the markets? Yeah.
So, because you brought up LPL, and LPL recently, along with Mary Price and Schwab, their stocks tanked after one of the AI note takers in the space, one of the custodians with an AI note taker in the space released a tax planning tool called Hazel. And so that begged the question, if a custodian can do tax planning, are the incumbent custodians and incumbent players in the market really, do they have a place in the future? And I think a couple weeks after that, LPL announced a partnership with Anthropic, really timely announcement. I think they're realizing the writing is on the wall, and so you either have to start adopting technology really, really quickly, or you're going to be left in a firm of the past.
Yeah, I mean, just to set context for everyone, Altruist, which is like a Series F company, I think, made an announcement, and there was about 20 billion in market cap lost across a number of these incumbents. And so it's what we see playing out kind of writ large around, the SaaS headlines and a number of other ones. You're seeing that play out in wealth management as well. I mean, maybe kind of coming up, what do you think's going on as you think about, market caps being eroded, AI kind of as the boogeyman? Break it apart for us. Ethan, you want to start?
I just think this is exactly what you would see if AI was having the impact that everyone thought it would.
Yeah.
As it started, even going back 10 years ago, is uncertainty. What will be the impact? And there's huge sell-offs and trillions in SaaS market cap sold off. But then new partnerships announced daily, new tools daily. The rate of shipping is pretty insane across the frontier labs. And we're in this fog of war. And where will the value change in the value chain? Where will the value capture? What really is a moat now, and how defensible is it? Some of it may be overplayed, and I'm not going to go into it. There's lots of great ink spilled over the last week from different perspectives that everyone should read. But it just, we're in it, would be my perspective.
Yeah.
And so just make sure you believe in what you're doing and you're staying on the edge of the technology to know how it affects your job and your company and what you're trying to achieve.
Marco, you're kind of at the center of this across multiple vectors. I mean, how do you read what's going on in the markets?
So I think that the first thing is the marketplace provides liquidity, and maybe there's kind of the best assessment of enterprise's value, you would think in a way, is being reflected in the market, but it's also a very emotional place. And I think maybe some of the growth premium of existing SaaS businesses has been traded away, but it's largely from a place of uncertainty. And so I wouldn't read too much into that now. I think nobody can really tell what 10 years from now different software platforms or services will look like. In all likelihood, if we think AI enables a sort of a different business model, it's like a platform shift, and there will probably be entirely new services that become multi-billion-dollar businesses that are unrelated to the so-called incumbents today. And I personally don't think of it as much of like a shift from A to B of what we know today, but now it's where there are a lot of companies being built that will be of the size of today's incumbents, but are just totally different from what we know. And so I guess that's my view of like the marketplace valuation. And largely, in my Uber days, we were told to post-IPO, just ignore what's happening in there. Short-term voting mechanism, we're building long-term value.
Is there anything the incumbents can do, or is it a slow march towards death?
No, I mean, I would never say that, first of all.
Our OpenAI representative.
But I think the view is both at startups and incumbents to be tinkering, and the ultimate success in any business is the ability to adapt, the ability to learn and adapt. And so with AI, it's less about having like, what is the solution and what's the perfect use case, but more, are people tinkering and trying to think about what can they automate, or what can they make a little bit more efficient, or what new things are possible to do. And as long as they're on that learning curve and picking up the capabilities, the so-called model overhang, you bring in context, you bring in tools, and you start to automate workflows. That can happen at an incumbent, or it can happen at a totally net new company. And so the encouragement is always enable people with top-down messaging to like tinker, make the tools available, and continue to learn.
Adam, what do you think? Anything the incumbents can do?
I think totally. When we are thinking about talking to some of the larger incumbent players in our space, there's kind of like the value is accruing to the ones that have already started thinking about how they can adopt technology and AI. When I think about an LPL, they have, let's just say, 30,000 advisors, right? And so they're acting on making decisions on behalf of a very large population of advisors. The risk that if they don't adopt technology fast enough, they have attrition and they lose advisors, which is really their product, and to their smaller competitors. The other side of it is if they adopt technology that is not that safe, right? That's an even bigger risk from a regulatory risk and exposure perspective. And so it's not like, when we at least talk to some of these larger firms, it's not like they're not trying to adopt, but they're trying to learn as much as possible. And I think as long as they're putting themselves in the room and having the conversations and like making informed decisions, they're never going to adapt as fast as some of the new startups. That's just not physically possible. But as long as they're open and having conversations, starting to create AI governance, AI committees, I think their place is safe for now.
What do you think, Ethan? Is there a future for them? You coming after all of them?
Oh, there's certainly a future for them. I mean, we need trusted, large brands that have been managing money for people for 700 years to stay around. So I have no issue with that. I think that's good. It's a good thing. We should keep that going. They should be adopting the tools to be more efficient, to have better margins and serve their clients better. But we definitely should have them around.
Let's shift a little bit to lifting the veil on what's actually working today. So, and maybe you start, what's gaining traction right now in your product that maybe you didn't expect at the start? What's working?
Yeah, what's working? Enterprise adoption much faster than we would have ever planned or expected. I think Ryan talked about this earlier. Some of your portcos are seeing just adoption from national brands that would have taken other companies, or historically like 5 years. 5-year sales cycles, or just 5 years of being around, and we've been around for 1.5 years, and we're selling to some of the largest financial institutions in the country right now, and that barrier to adoption, the barrier is just insane, and it's been really exciting to see. So that's taken us by surprise. I mean, even in our wildest projections, we never thought we would have been able to close some of these companies so quickly. So that's been really cool.
Yeah. What about you, Ethan?
Going back to the trust point you brought up earlier, I think the thing that's surprised us as we build new features and new functionality with Hiro, certainly we have an early adopter user, but even how much they're trusting us out of the box, like talking through their portfolio, making changes. That's not even a service we offer, but they're using Hiro to do that because you can obviously chat with it about whatever financial topic you have. And so the need and the pulling of that need from the market is surprising. To your point, it's like, will people be ready for this? I think, as we look and study some of the data and look at some of the research, like the number of people every day talking about their financial life just to ChatGPT is pretty insane if you get down to it. It's like in mass already occurring, and that's surprising. It's very surprising. I didn't think it would be that fast.
I have a question for Ethan, if that's okay. What is the number that you think at that point you need a human? Like, is there a number?
A number for what?
Assets or like wealth.
For today, I mean, this is personal, but yeah, I think, today, if you have sub $20 million, I don't think you would need a human to do much for you financially, or shouldn't. Now, maybe there's things you don't want to do that you'll pay someone to do for you, or some type of fee-only arrangement could make a lot of sense, but again, that's my personal take. Because at 20 million, the tax planning is actually where the real benefit starts to come, and you need humans to do that. It gets quite sophisticated for a variety of reasons. I'm not sure you need humans to manage your portfolio still at 20 million, though. Like, that can be reasonably straightforward still.
And Marco, maybe, obviously.
I could just react for a second.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not a tax expert. This is not tax advice. I'm not in the tax industry, so I probably shouldn't even comment. But in a world where you have rules around treatment of money, you can optimize models to kind of produce results that evaluate well or poorly against those rules. So in any deterministic setting, I think it's very realistic to think that models could do broad exploration, come back with alternative solutions to meet sort of the tax regulations. I think that that's like a pretty easy problem from a model training perspective. So I'm actually really interested in like model-based tax planning.
When you get super wealthy, though, those become one-way doors, like to take a large chunk of money and put it in some irrevocable trust or some type of NIMCROD or, sort of planning tool. It becomes a one-way door. So if you're going to put a chunk of money into those, yes, the LLM can be like, this is what you should do, but you need someone who's seen 100 of those, been to court with the IRS, and knows this is a good choice for this chunk of money. I think that's why it's...
So believe me, I'd be doing that if I was in that position. I think that the question that I ask, though, is that person that you're interacting with getting the strategy and the tactics from other experts they work with at their firm, which is how it works today, or from models that are giving them suggestions. And then at the end of the day, you're getting the comfort that like a human's taking the liability and that you can go after them if something goes wrong. But if they're getting their input from a model versus an internal expert, when those two worlds converge, that's what I think is really interesting. And then it's like, well, yes, there's like the licensed professional bit. Like, there's no model that's going to be licensed to do financial advice, I think, in the near term. But then you go back to that world where you may just choose to pay a little premium to talk with a person instead of a model. And that's kind of interesting, if that's what it is.
There's a product called Mezi, which is a AI financial advisor. It's now a registered investment advisor with the SEC. There's another product, it's based out of Brooklyn, I forget, they're in the process of registering. And there's another, Origin is another one. They're AI financial advisors, somewhat similar here. They're also registered investment advisor with the SEC.
Well,
So it's here already.
Over there.
It's here.
FINNY was registered as an internal advisor with the SEC at one point, actually, too. So they're allowing it. I think there's strict rules there, but it's happening.
Amazing.
The future is here.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of founders in the audience. And so would love just maybe touch on some advice for them. And we prepared a lot of questions. Maybe the best one to go into is what's the most common mistake you see from founders that are building in this space, and how should anyone, whether we want to extrapolate it to wealth management specifically or human in the loop versus non, like what advice would you give to founders kind of tackling one of those problems?
Trying to do too much at once, I think, is with AI now such an easy like mousetrap, and so you can build so quickly and so broad. And so when I'm talking to other founders now who are just starting and building in the space, they're like, we're going to be the all-in-one platform for wealth managers. I'm like, great, what are you starting with? They're like, everything. And it's so tempting to say, I can have Claude Code and instead of 3 engineers basically build everything from portfolio rebalancing to tax loss harvesting to a CRM to your AI note taker. But there's something to be said about like building and learning and iterating and putting something from your customers, seeing how they react and having those loops and building just like a lot of taste and an opinion and like a really specific like task and feature before you go out and keep building. And so I think most founders I talk to now that are just starting out are falling into this mousetrap of like, just because I can build everything, why shouldn't I? My take is just build really, really narrow, really great software and one at a time, and then modularize it. And then you can end up building everything. But just be really great at one thing first.
I mean, this is true for all products and entrepreneurial endeavors, but fintech is, I think it's even more true because the market's so fragmented and segmented. You need to be really clear who your customer is. In finance, as anyone who's worked in the space knows, no two people think about their money the same way. When you start breaking it apart by income or asset level or credit score, the needs are really different. And so, to that, if you try to do all the things, you're dead. So really focusing on that segment, I think, is essential for you to actually solve a problem that segment has and go deep as well.
Marco?
Yeah, I'm not in the founder seat now, but thinking back to the earlier days of Bridge, there were a few small miracles that happened kind of in succession, and it ladders up to exactly what these two are talking about, which is it starts with the quality of the team and hiring really, really capable people, because then the next step is making really good product decisions. Because then the next step is getting your first few customers and getting customers that you can serve well because you have a great team, and winning their business in that way, and then just the snowball effect starts happening. And if you don't have those three, things get a little harder. This is not really answering maybe your question around what to avoid in the world of AI, but I think like as long as you're staying on track with those core tenets, you'll probably be in a good spot.
The foundation around building a business transcends the technology, basically.
Yeah, and the technology is a tool that you use. You could use the tool to whip up a bunch of really poor products that nobody wants to get, and in that case, you're not getting the customer and driving revenue and getting traction. So all the things will self-correct as long as I think those first three little miracles happen.
And if I can just add to that, I think the thing that, if you do those three things right, the thing you unlock really quickly is brand and credibility in an industry. And I think that's more important than ever. And you probably agree, and would love to get your take on this, but like focusing on an industry and then building a reputable brand with high credibility in that industry is probably one of the best moats you can have right now, where it's the only thing that from an outsider in perspective, if everyone's website looks the same and everyone's, you know, promising the same thing, the business with the best credibility and brand in that industry is going to win over and over again. So that's also another thing that I would say is super important.
Yeah, I think it's especially true in financial services as well.
Totally. Let's open it up to questions. Got one back there.
What AI model were you using? Like Pro, hopefully?
Just auto.
Nice.
I think they'll crowd out most of the innovation, but for our customer, we're focused on a wealthier client, and the product will be tailored in a way with a brand that really speaks to you, that will sort of scratch your itch in a way that if you are the right client, you'll use Hiro and you'll pay for it. But I still encourage you to push ChatGPT to its limit, because for most people, it's going to be fantastic. And I think that, and we're in this fog of war where it's sort of like there's a lot of things ChatGPT will do, but it won't be everything. And we're going to slowly see the things they can do and do really well, and where there's space for companies like Hiro. That's how I think about it. I sort of jumped in front of you, but.
Same. No, I'm glad you did. Same. I mean, I think what OpenAI ends up doing will always be driven by the mission, which is just to make AGI generally available. So that's more the priority than to kind of launch verticalized software. And impossible to predict exactly where the business goes over time. But I think of ChatGPT from the consumer perspective as a general purpose tool. That gets you the launch pad into like some early decisions you may make. Like, oh, I probably do need an estate plan, and here's what it should look like, and what should I ask my advisor about? And so you get maybe 80% of the legwork done, but then you go to the professionals for the actual thing that needs to be done. And there will be, you know, we launched like an apps ecosystem, so you could do like slightly more work from within ChatGPT before leaving, but ultimately, yeah, the intent is not to be a vertical SaaS business.
I have time for one more quick question. Got another? Yep. I think so.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is basically, when you're selling to enterprise firms, is the cost of building technology is decreasing, and potentially as you know, regulatory requirements are also decreasing? Like, how can you think about basically the stickiness of enterprise customers? In a couple of ways. I think a lot of enterprises are now, to your point, in this kind of like pilot, like let's try everything. And you can artificially create stickiness in your product by building like product hooks, right? And so integrating and replacing maybe a CRM, or building things that are really, really sticky, and that's great. But I think the place where you were going was anyone can do that. And so, and that might erode, especially as we're seeing more agents that can turn anything into an API. And so then it ultimately is just which software can provide the most value, just building the best product. And I don't think there's any hack to stickiness at that point, is as long as you're innovating and your product is delivering the best enterprise value, they'll keep you. I think we've seen historically, especially in our industry in wealth management, large companies and enterprises are not very good at building in-house technology. And so I think they will keep outsourcing best-in-class technology, and as long as you are the best in class, you'll keep them. There is still like a massive adoption. So like I'll use LPL as the example again. LPL maybe once every 5 years will go through an RFP for a type of software in a specific like feature or set. Once you got adoption, there's like a double sale that you now then have to go and sell to the 30,000 advisors. Once they adopt you, it's really hard to then be like, I have another software that is a little bit different and better. Like adoption in industries that are a little bit more like legacy that have, the average age of a financial advisor is 55. And so they're not switching their technology like as fast as some of us in this room might be switching based off like marginal improvements. Cool.
A default, yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate everyone on the panel today. Thanks for joining.
Cameron.
And we'll give them a round of applause.